Hello, this is Hyper Knight G, and today I'm going to be talking about the War Glaives that are new in Fallout 76 with the introduction of daily ops. This is our newest two-handed melee weapon, and we've got a pretty interesting collection of options here. As a reminder, I recently went two-handed melee, which if you're going to do that, I recommend... Well, you're going to have to get the Slugger perk, the Expert Slugger, Master Slugger. These all collectively will give you 60% damage on two-handed melee. Also the Martial Artist, which makes those weapons weigh less, and you can swing them 30% faster. And Incisor, which lets your melee and unarmed weapons ignore 75% of your target's armor. Additionally, you're going to want to go over to Intelligence and put on the Makeshift Warrior card. This will let your melee weapons break 50% slower, and you can craft all of the weapons and mods that you need. And honestly, it's very effective. My melee weapons break so much slower. I go about a week before I have to make any changes on any of these. To talk about the War Glaive itself, this item right here. I'm going to go ahead and take this one off the wall so we can take a look at it. You get this by going in and doing daily ops, which are featured on the start menu here. For instance, this daily op today, it's got the burrows with robots that have freezing touch, and they can see you if you're hiding in stealth. So this is just today's option. It could be Blood Eagles, it could be Super Mutants, you could be in Vault 94, you could be in the Burning Mine. There's a lot of daily variety here. But one of the rewards you get, if you complete in a reasonable amount of time, is the plan for the War Glaive, which I'm going to take a look at right here. If you've played any Dungeons & Dragons, or if you're just interested in older weaponry, the War Glaive is basically a blade on the end of a stick. Imagine you're a foot soldier, and you're fighting opponents on horseback. You're going to need a long stick to reach up and a blade at the end to cut them. This particular glaive, it may look a bit more like a halberd if you're familiar with that. The base War Glaive, which you have to get the plan from the Daily Ops to craft, it's a two-sided blade. There are some electrics involved in it, but we'll take a look at the creation and what the different glaives look like. This one's a two-sided blade. You can see you'll only swing it the one way, but you could theoretically use both. So I'm going to come over to my workbench here, and if I go into craft, it's going to be under blunt melee weapons. You're going to come all the way down to... Nope, sorry. Edged melee weapons. Let's try that again, because it's got a blade. Think about that. It's not blunt, it's edged. So, there it is, right towards the top. Yeah. Alright, so to make a War Glaive, you're going to need 5 aluminum, 7 black titanium, 5 circuitry, not quite sure where the circuitry comes into play, 8 rubber, and 10 steel. So, not that bad. Once you've got the plan for the War Glaive and you've made your first one, then you're going to want to start to modify it. Which we'll talk in just a second about how you go up to regs and where you get the mods. But looking at it, we can see right now that it's a slow swing speed weapon, which is fine. Most two-handed weapons do move slowly, and the damage is 152. Now this one that I've got right here is a level 30 War Glaive, but you can see it goes up. I don't know why they have it level 30, because you can't get this plan until level 50. So we go up to 40, damage jumps up to 176, level 50, damage goes up to 201. So already we're doing better. Now if I modify the War Glaive that I've got, you see it's at 201, and I've got it more than fully, health-wise, I've got it more than maxed out there. So if I go in to modify it, I have 4 options, and I had to buy each one of these from regs for about 20 gold bullion. The first choice is the Cryo Blade, which you can see how it changes the head of the blade from just a sharp piece of metal to a double-sided sort of battle axe almost, and you can see the white crystal in the middle, which is where the freezing comes from. What's interesting about this is in order to make this modification, you have to use cryo cells to get the freezing effect. So 1 circuitry, 4 nuclear material, 6 screws, 4 steel, okay, and then the 10 cryo cells. What's interesting is how the damage changes. It goes from 201, just base ballistic physical damage, to 100 physical damage and 131 freezing damage. This is also going to reduce your opponent's movement speed for about 3 seconds. So 231 total as opposed to 201 regular. Now, if you don't like freezing, well, then we've got Flaming Blade, which instead of cryocells, you'll use 10 fuel. And you can kind of see, we'll look at it visually in a second, the propane on the back here and the valve on the end to adjust the flame. And as with the Cryo Blade, you've got 100 base damage and 131, this time fire damage, and instead of freezing, your targets will burn for 5 seconds. Your next option is the Plasma Blade, and this is going to require a plasma core as its fuel component. As above, 100 and 131, it adds energy damage and it will do plasma crit effects. So if you go this way, don't be surprised to see a lot of bright green puddles on the ground where your opponents have been turned into goo. And finally, the Shocking Blade, which you would think there'd be some electrical component, but instead you're going to need 5 rubber, presumably to handle the thing. It adds electrical damage, and again, 100, 131. So really, there's not a best choice of the mods. They all do the same damage. It's down to individual playstyles. Do you want your opponents to be stuck frozen for 3 seconds? Do you want to watch them burn for 5 seconds? Do you want to turn them into puddles of goo? Or do you want them to kind of, well, get shocked? Plenty of options depending on how you want to go. Visually, let's take a look. Starting with the Plasma Glaive here, you can kind of see how it's got a green glowing blade and a purple lantern, basically, that is where the energy comes from. Also, you see the wire hook up here. That's where the circuitry is. The wire on the top brings out the electrical. And there's a couple of valves on the side. By comparison, if we look at the Burning Glaive, you see that valve I mentioned earlier, how the propane or whatever inflammant is being used here will bring that up into the blade itself. Looking at the electrical, I love the little lightning bolt on the side here that you can see, and also the wiring they've added in. And you can see how the lightning is still present even when I display it. And then the freezing blade, you can kind of see where it's got a bit of frost on the blade here, and that little ice crystal that I mentioned in the middle. So let's pull these all off the wall and take a look. You're probably not going to be able to hear so well because they are very quiet. But we'll go ahead and show you how they look when they're being used. We'll start with the electrical one. In the instance that I equip it, you now can see the pulsating energy. Yeah, it really crackles and pops all around. And when I swing it, there's not really any sound to it. So nothing terrifically fascinating there. If I come down to the Flaming Glaive, well, you can immediately see it is definitely a burning. And when I swing it, there's not really much of a flame arc. And the sound is kind of similar to the shish kebab. Doesn't make a huge noise. The Plasma Glaive, there's not really any sort of radiating electricity off of this one, though it does make a very quiet lightsaber kind of sound. And freezing. Now, you can kind of see, it's very hard depending on the light, but you should be able to see the white mist coming off of this one. I also seem like I'm gripping it a bit higher, but that could just be me. You can see the rings on either side and how the blade really does look frozen. And when I swing it, there's kind of a psss, kind of a misty sound there. It really goes pretty quick. As far as all of these go, what's important is once you've made the plan, you can go get legendary versions of it. This one, for instance, this is my Executioner's Plasma War Glaive. Does 40% more power attack damage and 50% more damage when my target is below 40% health. Let's see, we've got the flaming one, the electrified one, and as I look at this plasma version, yeah, for me it's the most visually impressive, but it's going to come down to your individual playstyle, which one of these you care for. And unfortunately, the big problem about this weapon, the plan cannot be traded. So you can't give the plan to a friend or an alternate. You can't even trade the weapon itself once you get it. When this video's over, I'm basically just going to have to destroy all these War Glaives because there's nothing else I can do with them. In my next video, I'm going to talk about the Tenderizer and some of the other two-handed weapons, and we'll compare them to see what we think of all of those. So, do come back and check out that. I'm probably supposed to tell you to like or click something, subscribe, I don't know. You do what feels right to you. Alright, talk to you next time. Bye-bye.